Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and in this episode, you guessed it, the engine has to go back in. Yes, obviously this was inevitable, but in this episode, I'm going to get the engine back into the car and start doing a few more measurements. I had some plans that I was going to do moving forward on this, and being a Ferrari engine, just nothing is that easy. I will show you what I mean soon. For those of you who haven't been keeping up, I'll put a link up above so you can see where we were at and catch up. And if you are thinking about subscribing, you should do that. It definitely helps us out. All right, and this is what I'm actually talking about as far as Ferraris being more difficult. So the oil filter on the Ferrari is actually, it's sort of underneath the plenum at the back, so the firewall side of the car. Now in the Ferrari, in the actual Ferrari 360 this engine came out of, because the engine is in the back of the car, you're reaching in from the back, you can come straight in and grab this oil filter out, and it's quite simple. But in this car, it's going to be wedged against the firewall, which makes it more difficult to get in and out. And I always just thought I'm going to get a sandwich plate and run a remote oil filter, which I've done in sort of drift cars, Nissans and things like that in the past. It's quite easy, simple to get. The issue I just found is you can't actually get a sandwich plate that's big enough for this car, because the center of this is actually a 1 inch by 12 UNF, which is a very, very large fitting, much bigger than pretty much anything sort of regularly off the shelf. And I thought about trying to make up something, but I was worried that if I put a sandwich plate in this, that it may not actually, it may not flow enough, and it's going to be an issue. So I think I'm going to have to run with the oil filter in place, but I have built this whole engine bay around the fact that I was going to be running this sandwich plate, and now I might not be able to. So I'm going to put this onto the engine and see if it will still fit in the engine bay with the oil filter on, and then also see if it'll actually be able to, if I'll actually be able to get it on and off with the engine in the engine bay, because it would really suck if you had to drop the engine or pull the plenum off to change the oil, because that's not what we want to do. But we're just limited with everything in this car, and I think this is going to be the easiest way to go. There is no easy way to run the remote oil filter, so I think we're just going to run it in place. The other thing I need to watch is on the back here, I need to screw in down the base here is the oil temperature pressure sensor, which goes into here. So I need to put that in as well and see if we can get this engine in and out of the engine bay with all this stuff fitted. Not sure, but we're going to make it work. So you can see the sensor here is actually going to interfere with the firewall, and but I still have a fair bit of room for the oil filter. So the oil filter I think might work, but it may just mean in this case, which is a bit of a pain, that if I do want to remove the engine, obviously if you're using the engine, you're removing all the oil out of it anyway, and I may have to remove the sensor to take the engine in and out, which is a bit of a pain, but we're just working with such tight tolerances. I don't know if there's much in the way of other options. At the moment, the engine's sitting down on top of the engine mounts. It needs to sort of slide back to actually slot down inside the slots where they need to bolt in. So I think I'm going to have to remove that sensor and then try again and see if we can get the bits to fit. All right, now's the test. It actually looks very, very tight. Just the manifold looks tight. Let's see if I can actually get this off. It actually looks like it's touching at the moment on the back of the manifold itself. We've got room to the firewall to get in and out. I may actually have to just lightly grind down the very back runner here. There's plenty of meat in these runners, so I might just grind down a bit of a groove so that I can actually get this filter on and off, because this is a vitally important part. The other thing I needed to be able to do is to get in here and put on the sensor. It's not ideal, but hopefully we don't actually have to pull the engine in and out very often, so this is just one of those things that's going to have to happen. All right, it's quite a tight fit, but it gets in there. It does, the top of the oil filter does rub a bit. It's going to be a bit of a tight fit to get this thing on and off in the future, but that's just the way it has to be on this car. Just, yeah, it's almost like this engine wasn't designed to go in a little Alfa 105. All right, moving on. All right, so the next thing I'm going to tackle is something else back here with the cage. Now, when I put the cage in, you saw me set up the factory seat belts. Now, I'm not a fan of these type of seat belts. Basically, these ones are the fixed, non-retractable seat belts that you can adjust the length of it, but they're a solid sort of fixed thing you have to adjust every time. And I want to upgrade them to a more modern, comfortable, retractable seat belt. Now, they're not going to be ideal, and that is mostly because this is going to be the shoulder height of the car. So it's the waterline, so it's lower than the shoulder of the seat of the car. So it is going to sit, it's not ideal. It would be better, like most cars that have it mounted up here, but this doesn't have the structure at the top of the car to be able to hold the seat belts. It's just not going to be safe. So we're going to reuse the original mount, which is obviously already approved for seat belts as far as engineering, etc. goes, and it's going to have still the same point down the bottom, which is the lower mount of the seat belt of the three pieces, and then the inner mount where the actual clip goes. I'm going to use the same mount for that as well. So three of the mounts are going to be as per the factory, so they're all going to be nice and easy to approve. But I want to actually make another mount down here somewhere to mount in my retractable unit. So I've got this space inside the door, so I don't actually have to have this ugly thing out inside the interior of the car. I can actually tuck it into the interior of the car, but I need to make some mounts to actually fit it. So that is where I need to do some thinking and make sure I can make something that's going to be strong enough, solid enough to keep the engineers happy, because obviously this is something that needs to be engineered on the car. I can't just, it's not legal to just bolt seatbelts into whatever, because it's not safe. In an accident, this is what is going to be holding you in the car and making sure it keeps you safe. So I'm going to have to do some reinforcing and make some plates, probably down here next to the rail, right down the bottom here, tie it in so it's nice and strong, reinforce it all, and then we can have a retractable seatbelt in the car. All right, so I was sort of doing some working out backwards and forwards, trying to sort out exactly how I'm going to mount these in the car. So as I mentioned, basically those rear trim panels sit flush with the panels of the car, and I want these to be on the inside, so the bulk of the mechanism is inside in that void internally in the car, so I don't have these big lumps just in the back of the car. But when I do that, I still need to bolt them on, and the only sort of real way to bolt them on, it means that the bolt is going to have to come out into the interior of the car. It's better than that being in the interior of the car. I can put a little cover or something over, a little cap over the end of the bolts to hide them in. That's not a big issue. So what I'm planning on doing, I've made a couple of plates. I do have, these are actually Raceworks racing harness seatbelt mounts. So this is sort of good enough for FIA for seatbelt mounts, but what I am doing is I I am going to do a bigger mount. This is going to be, I weld the whole thing in. I put a slight crease in it just so it fits the panels just nicely, and the bolt is going to be on the outside, so on the inside of the interior where you'll see it. But again, I'm going to put a cap on it, so I'm going to weld in the captive nuts now, and then I can weld these plates in, and there'll be a nice mounting point for the seat belts, and we should be looking good. That works nicely. So I have my latch portion, factory spot, the bottom of the seatbelt in the factory spot, the redirect where the top of the seatbelt was connected, and now with my new connection at the bottom, I have a retractable seatbelt. Fantastic! All right, so now we have seatbelts. The next thing on my list to tackle is an accelerator pedal. As you saw in the last episodes, I was working on the clutch and brake pedal, which I managed to use the factory pedals, and I just changed the master cylinders. That was reasonably straightforward, but obviously on this originally had a cable throttle, and the Ferrari engine has a fly-by-wire throttle bodies, twin throttle bodies, so I need an electronic throttle pedal. So I started having a look around. First of all, because I actually have it out sitting around, I actually looked at the Audi pedal. So this is out of the Audi A6, that this is going to go into the Rockster. This pedal I looked at, for starters, if I'm going to put it in the car, it interferes with the electric power steering because of the angle it's all over. It's terrible, and it's also all plastic, which I'm not really a huge fan of, particularly on an older car like this. I just prefer if it's metal. So I started having a look around at a bunch of the different options, and the pedal I managed to find that worked. I think this is actually off of a Nissan X-Trail. I just punched in random brands on eBay on all sorts of different styles, and this is an e-throttle that works. It's nice and straight and linear. It's a metal bracket with a simple, I believe it's a Bosch. I know it's not a Bosch, but a simple electronic throttle sensor on it. So it's all ready to go. Now, I couldn't remember what the accelerator was like in this car, and I kept looking around actually for a pedal that was bolted into the floor that just sort of hinged forwards, because obviously these are floor hinge pedals for the clutch and brake. And then I started looking at the car, and as many commented, there's all the Swiss cheese down on the floor there where the base of the brake pedal would be, which is a cosmetic job that I am going to fix just later. It's a very inconsequential little repair. Once I've done everything else around it, I can fix that bit. And then I realised there's nowhere it would have been bolted on down there. So I did a bit more research, and the reason I can't remember it is because it's a top-mounted accelerator pedal with floor-mounted clutch and brake, which is good because this was top-mounted, and I was worried that it was going to be weird having a top-mounted accelerator pedal with floor-mounted clutch and brake. But that's the way I do it from factory, and it's much easier leaving this as it is. It's a nice plain pedal, which actually is similar enough to what the original one was. So all we need to do now is actually work out a spot to mount this pedal, hold it in place, get it in the right spot for where I want to use it, and build a bracket so that it'll actually bolt onto something. Because at the moment it's just swinging in the breeze. All right, it proves to be very difficult to mount something in the middle of thin air, trying to sort of work out how to place it, how to get things in the right place. What I did is I put the pedal unit in the vise, measured the travel of the pedal itself so that I can sort of work out roughly how far I need to make it. There is a stop here for the accelerator pedal. I'm not sure if that's picking it up, but there's the stop right here. That I'm trying to reuse and keep that as a rough guide of where the center of the pedal needs to be. And there is actually a pad on the back of this pedal where it's supposed to hit the stop. I made up a little piece of angle iron with some captive nuts in it that I bolted to the back of the pedal, and then I've just tacked on another piece of angle iron, just trying to hover things around to get it roughly in the right spot so the pedal is going to be where I want my foot to be. I am reasonably happy with this piece now, so instead of just tacking it onto the side of this piece like I've done here, I'm going to cut it out and weld it in flush, so that we have a nice, neat, flush mount in the same spot, and then we should be able to start welding this pedal into the car. Okay, so I spent a bit of time then and I welded up my pedal bracket. It's still quite hot, but basically the pedal bolts onto the end of this like so, and this is the right shape here to be able to weld into the footwell of the car. So I've got a nice, super solid mount. This is 3mm angle iron. It's massively overkill, but that will definitely hold the pedal nicely so that I can stomp on the accelerator as much as I like, and it's not going to go anywhere. So now we need to bolt the pedal back on and then weld it into the car in the right spot. Fingers crossed it's all going to work, and I have the travel and I can heel toe and all that sort of stuff. It all works the way it's supposed to. So, fourth time lucky, I had to keep installing the pedal, trying it out, cutting down the mount, installing it again, but I finally got it in, and it's in the right spot. I can heel toe. I did have to go in and take the stop out from the back of the pedal just to get it to travel deep enough, because it just wasn't making enough space for the pedal to go full travel. But it's looking good now. It's all in the right spot. We finally have a pedal in the right place. All right, now it's welded in solid. Plenty of space to heel toe. These clutch and brake pedals still come back towards the driver far too far at the moment. Until I actually get them bled properly and mounted, I need to deal with that, but it's looking good. And that's the next thing I was doing today, is I finally got some tyres for the car. And how good does it look with tyres on it? It's really starting to show how sort of tough it's going to look. I really like it. The flares are just sitting there. They're not actually on the right spot. I just got 2 tyres made up. So yes, that tyre is on backwards. It's just sitting there just to have a look. So don't jump up and down saying it's on the wrong way around. It's just getting an idea of how it all looks, and I think it looks great. The wheel doesn't hit. I had a look. The tyre would hit under full bump, under full lock on the inside wheel, which it wouldn't really happen. It'd only be, on the outside it would get to full compression. That's very unlikely, and it just touches. There's room in there for that. I'm really happy. Getting that pedal done is a very important part. All the touch points in the car are the things you're going to notice every time you get in the car. And if that pedal's in the wrong spot, it's just going to feel horrible. So it was worth spending an extra long amount of time getting that pedal in the right spot. I am very happy, but I'm out of time. So I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, Ferrari's cars were continuously evolving in 1950, with many of the 166 range converting to the 195s. The primary difference was the replacing of the 2-litre Colombo V12 with a 2.3. This capacity increase was achieved by increasing the bore, and in doing so, increasing the output by 20 horsepower to 130 horsepower. The 195s were produced for less than a year, and 27 195 Inters, as the road cars were known, were produced with a longer wheelbase. These cars had bodies by Vignali, Touring, Ghia, and one by Motto. There are only 4 of the sports racing cars built known as the 195Ss, and these were all converted from the 166 MMs. 2 were closed Berlinettas and 2 were open Barchettas, and they were all bodied by Carrozzeria Touring. 2 of the 195Ss had their first outing that year at the Targa Florio, but neither managed to finish. The first big success for the 195S came in the 1950 Mille Miglia, where they managed to finish respectively 1st, 2nd and 9th.
Well, that was another successful week. I'm quite happy with the progress. Getting the pedal in place. It's just now the pedals are where they're supposed to be.
But didn't you say you put it in and it didn't feel right?
It didn't, but then I changed it. Between when you saw it. So
that should be one of your sayings. Why do it once if you can do it?
I did actually
multiple
4 times. But four times until it was sitting in the right spot where it felt right and the travel was just right. Because that's the big thing you're going to notice, as I said earlier. When as soon as you get in the car, if the pedals aren't right and the steering wheel's not right and the gear sticks, they're the things you touch, they're the things you feel and notice. So
it's like the wheel, like last time the wheel. It's got to be right. It's worth fiddling around getting it right.
Exactly.
Because they're the non-negotiables.
So we are getting there, and I think actually next week I might actually have to get the car up on the hoist to continue, because we're really rolling through this. I am quite excited.
That'd be good to have another car moving towards the finish line.
Yeah, the only problem is that Roxton needs the hoist, so I'm going to be having to swap cars. And anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying it, and you join us.
Please like and subscribe if you haven't, or if you'd like to. Makes sense.
Patreon,
yep. If you'd like to see them a day earlier with no ads, please follow Jeff on Patreon. Support him and keep him in his craziness.
Yep. And Facebook and Instagram, Home Built by Jeff as well. Plenty of stuff on there, giving you hints as what's coming up. So, all right, we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys. The replacing of the of the 2-litre Colombo V12 with a 2.3. Yeah, the Targa Florio, but neither managed to finish. Targa Florio. I said Florio, didn't I?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know why I'm doing these hand movements. Neither managed to finish.